Welcome into the official Will G's Mock Draft 2.0. This is the one first after free agency, and free agency was a good one. We had a lot of big deals, a lot of players moving around, and after a packed free agency like that, things are going to change. Teams are going to address needs in free agency that I believe they were going to address in the draft. So I believe we only have 6 selections from Mock Draft 1.0 that are the same in this one, leaving us with 24 new selections. Could not be more excited about this. Let's go ahead and get the draft up here on the board. Let's get right into this, and that leaves us with the number 1 overall pick. We're going to start the draft. Last time I had them taking Abdul Carter. This time I have the Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward. Listen, they invested a lot of money into their offensive line. They gave Dan Moore a huge contract, which I was not expecting in any way, shape, or form. Kevin Zeitler brought in. They already have J.C. Latham, Pete Skoronski. They have been shaping up this offensive line for a long time, and now they're ready. They're ready for a quarterback. Bill Callahan is getting his first swing, his first opportunity to draft his own quarterback and build him up from scratch. I talked about it in my mock draft 1.0. Cam Ward has the franchise quarterback traits. He's got the speed, he's got the mechanic, he's got the big arm. It's going to be if Bill Callahan can get him through the mental aspect of it. Speed up his processing, not running around, trusting his offensive line. I don't know if I trust Bill Callahan to do that yet. I mean, I just don't know if he's shown enough yet as a head coach for me to believe in him. I'm not saying it's not going to work out. I'm just saying I don't know how it's going to go. Truly, the Titans were the worst team in football last year. There's not a whole lot to go off of Bill Callahan's resume. Obviously, him working with Joe Burrow, big thing, but does that mean it's always going to translate into getting Cam Ward NFL ready? No, that's not always the truth. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do have them selecting Cam Ward number 1 overall, leaving us with Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. I talked about how the Deshaun Watson situation is going to get everybody fired in Cleveland, and how they address and fix that is to draft a rookie quarterback trying to save their careers. I don't believe they're going to risk their jobs on Shedeur Sanders, because that could be a situation where it's one and done. You're gone. And odds are, with a room of Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson, Sanders is going to be called to play because Deshaun Watson is going to be out for the entirety of the season. Kenny Pickett is woof. Shedeur Sanders is going to have to go in there and play. Otherwise, heads are going to be on the chopping block. On the other note, pairing Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett could, in my opinion, immediately become the best edge duo in the NFL. Abdul Carter is a freak, and having the attention that Myles Garrett brings on the other side of him is only going to benefit him. And it's really perfect timing here because Myles Garrett just got a massive contract extension, and by the time that is officially off the books is when Abdul Carter's rookie extension will be coming into play if Abdul Carter pans out. So I like Abdul Carter to the Browns. I think he would make their defense a real threat. And I'm going to stick with my 1.0 decision here, and I'm drafting Shedeur Sanders to the New York Giants. They just brought in Jameis Winston, who I think is a great leader and somebody who could feed a lot of experience into Shedeur Sanders. Winston is going to put up big numbers in Brian Daboll's offense. I don't know if it's going to equate to a lot of wins, but he's going to put up big numbers. A lot of talking heads have Shedeur Sanders slipping, some of them even late into this draft. I do not see it. Sanders very well could save the front office's heads in this one and Brian Daboll's head. Winston, I believe, is good enough to buy them another year with Sanders waiting in the wings. I just worry about them rushing into it, because Winston isn't going to get you the wins like I thought Aaron Rodgers would. And another big losing season with Jameis Winston at the helm could cause for them to fire Daboll and Shane, which means then they would probably be forced to play Shedeur Sanders through the middle of the season, which I think could really impact his development. I don't know. I really wanted them to see Aaron Rodgers pair him with Shedeur Sanders, but I still have them selecting Shedeur Sanders number 3 overall. And now moving on to number 4. Remember, There are trades now here in Mock Draft 2.0, and the New York Jets are going to be coming up. Compensation does not really matter here when it comes to this. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to give like official compensation numbers, but with this being in the division and them jumping, into that level tier, because you have your Abdul Carter, you got your Travis Hunter, they're jumping Mason Graham, they're jumping into that talent level. After that, it starts to slim out. So it's going to be a little expensive for the New York Jets. With it being in the division as well, I wouldn't be surprised if it cost them 42 to jump up from 7 to 4. We're going to offer the trade. Trade is done, and Aaron Glenn is going to land him a shiny new defensive back after the loss of DJ Reed and an offensive weapon, and that is Travis Hunter. This is the very first trade of my mock draft 2.0. Listen, the Patriots had a massive offseason. They spent a lot of money on defense. Landry, Carlton Davis, Milton Williams. And I think Carlton Davis is the big one here. Pairing him with Christian Gonzalez makes me believe that they're going to turn their draft focus into offensive line. And they know that they're going to be able to receive some compensation for pick 4 with Travis Hunter still being there and him not being as big of a need as it once was. So I believe somebody's going to be calling up on the phones for Travis Hunter. And I think the New York Jets just make sense. He just seems like an Aaron Glenn guy. They just lost DJ Reed, so they need another piece in the secondary. I know Sauce is somewhat declined. A lot of Jets fans want him traded for some reason. I think that kind of blows my mind. But pairing him with Sauce, I think, could be very good for them. A good cast of weapons on the offensive side of the ball as well. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Travis Hunter can go over there, play some snaps, help the new quarterback in Justin Fields. It's going to be fun with Aaron Glenn. They're going to utilize him very well on both sides of the ball, I think. I think this is kind of a match made in heaven. If I could imagine Travis Hunter playing with one guy, I think Aaron Glenn just fits that bill perfectly. And then moving on to pick 5, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Mason Graham. Again, I had that in my mock draft 1.0 as well. It's going to boast their defensive line. They're going to have Josh Allen-Hines, Eric Armstead, Trayvon Walker. They're going to be very good. He's going to give them that boost. He's going to propel them into being one of the top defensive lines in football. I fully believe that. They have a pretty solid roster. Their needs aren't necessarily massive. And I think Liam Cohen could really, turn this ship around in 1 year in kind of a weak AFC South. And I think Mason Graham, he's just, at this point, best player available. It is a big need for them. I have them going Mason Graham. Number 6 overall, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, and I know the talking heads all have them selecting Ashton Jandy. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see them selecting a running back, number 6 overall. Spytech coming from the Bucs. They've invested a lot of their first-round picks into the trenches. Pete Carroll, very famously known for building his trenches up. I just don't see them selecting Ashton Janty. Do they need a running back? Yes. But is Ashton Janty going to come in and fix all of their problems? No. I think they're going to go Jalen Walker from Georgia. There we go. Kind of the hybrid linebacker edge. They lost a linebacker in free agency. He could maybe start in year 1, kind of in the similar Micah Parsons, Nolan Smith, just doing a little bit of back and forth. They re-signed Malcolm Kuntz, so the pressure doesn't need to be there for him to be a full-time edge rusher. This is a guy that Pete Carroll can kind of just play with. One of those hybrid guys that he can move around, have him playing off-ball linebacker some snaps, have him coming off the edge some snaps. He has that elite speed to get off the edge very fast. They already have Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins there. So I just don't see them drafting a running back. Like, I can't imagine Spytech and Pete Carroll being like, yes, we're going to draft a running back number 6 overall. I don't know. I just don't see it. And that leaves us with number 7, the New England Patriots, now at pick 7 after the trade back with the New York Jets. And I have them selecting Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. This is going to be a big piece for them. Keeping Drake May upright is very important. I think he should be moved inside, and I think he's going to become an immediate Pro Bowl level guard inside in year 1. Vrabel has immediately raised the stakes in that franchise. I think there's going to be a cornerstone piece for them inside and building around Drake May for the future. The only question moving forward is going to be if Josh McDaniels still has it as a play caller for Drake May in year 2. But overall, Will Campbell is going to go in New England. play in their interior, and have an immediate impact in year one. I think this could be a very Quentin Nelson style kind of guy. Immediately come in, be one of the best guards in football. That's how good he is. Number 8 overall, and we do have another trade, and that is going to be with the Miami Dolphins. Like I said, compensation does not really matter here. It says the Dolphins are not interested in trading this pick. We're just going to give them that, and it's going to be accepted. They need offensive line more than anything, and they're going to select Armand Membo, the tackle out of Missouri. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? That's still up for debate. But the only major signing they brought to the table was James Daniels from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I also had Miami selecting Membo at number 13 in my mock draft 1.0. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Membo gets out of the top 10. I don't see it. He is starting to really rise up the boards. I see some people have him going at number 4 to the New England Patriots. That would kind of surprise me a little bit, but I wouldn't be that surprised. Membo is an immense talent, a freak athlete, and protecting Tua Tagovailoa is extremely important. And they're going to have to jump into the top 10 to do so. I think the talent level after Membo and Will Campbell starts to slip a little bit. Then you get into the Calvin Banks kind of, but I think Membo, Campbell are the best 2 offensive linemen in this draft, and I don't think there's a chance in hell that Miami is going to be able to take him at 13. Number 9 overall, I have the New Orleans Saints selecting Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. I know they signed Chase Young to an extension. I know they have Brian Breeze. I know they brought back Cam Jordan, but they need an edge rusher. I don't know if Chase Young is really it. Cam Jordan's on his last legs. Like, let's be real. Kellen Moore knows best coming from Philadelphia that a deep defensive line is extremely important. It helps you win ball games. And I think adding a high motor player like Mike Green is going to be huge for them. Brandon Staley is going to come in and, have this already deep defensive line with the addition of Mike Green, and he's going to be able to go to work with those guys. I don't see them selecting Jenkty. They have Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller. They just signed Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave. I think they needed to go defensive line. I would even argue that they should go offensive line, but I think that's why the Miami Dolphins jump the New Orleans Saints, because the Saints could go offensive line as well. Fuanga didn't have a great rookie year, and Penning has been nothing but a bust. That leaves us with my Chicago Bears at pick 10, and I have them selecting Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. The Bears went nuts in free agency. They invested a lot into their defensive line. They invested a lot into their offensive line, and it just seems like that's where they're leaning, is Ashton Jeanty. Personally, I don't know if I would go Ashton Jeanty here, because I'm very new school when it comes to selecting running backs in the first round, but it just is lining up to be that way. You bring in Drew Dahlman, who's one of the best run blocking centers in the NFL. You already have Braxton Jones, who's one of the best run blocking left tackles in the NFL. Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, big additions. DeAndre Swift just doesn't have that level to him. He's a solid back. He is. And I think Jeanty would pair well with him. But I just don't think Ben Johnson views DeAndre Swift as, a true running back. They traded him away and selected Jahmyr Gibbs instead. I don't know if it's going to be a very similar outcome to that, but I think Ben Johnson's like, yeah, Ashton Jeanty, that's my guy. Go get him. And the Bears have kind of set themselves up for a best player available. And you could make an argument that Ashton Jeanty is for sure the best player available. I just get worried because how new school I am. Not a big draft a running back or a linebacker in the first round kind of guy. But it's what I think the Bears are doing. Not what I necessarily think the Bears should do. It's what I think the Bears are doing. Pick 11, the San Francisco 49ers, and they are going to select, did I miss some? Calvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas. Exact same pick that I had them making in the mock draft 1.0. A lot of the talking heads think he's a guard. Scouts are saying that he's a guard. And it's what the 49ers need. The 49ers need to boost up their interior offensive line. Dominic Pooney was a great pick last year. They lost Aaron Banks to Green Bay. Calvin Banks can come in, be that fill right away on day one. No doubt about it. He's played tackle as well. If Trent Williams is hurt like he was last year, somebody you can kick outside. But in my opinion, day one replacement for Aaron Banks. Number 12, Dallas Cowboys, and they are going to be selecting Tet McMillan. I'm so confused on where to put Tet McMillan. I keep going back and forth. Do I think he's probably going to get drafted in the late teens, early 20s? Yes. But a lot of people have him going in the top 10. I just don't see it. I don't view him as a top 10 pick. He is the best wide receiver in this draft. Wide receiver 2 is their most glaring hole on offense. They just lost Brandon Cooks to New Orleans Saints. Tet's got a massive frame. In his pro day, he showed that he has, 4.4 speed. And I think that's going to get him over the hump of the early teens. And it just, seems like a Cowboys pick, doesn't it? I had them taking Jainty in my mock draft 1.0 because it seemed like a Cowboys pick. This also just seems like a Cowboys pick as well. Ted McMillan to the Dallas Cowboys at 12. Lock it in. Now we have the trade back, Carolina Panthers, moving from 8 to 13. And I have them drafting edge rusher out of Georgia, Michael Williams. I talked about it in my first one when I had them selecting Jalen Walker. I'm going to talk about it here. They need a defensive game changer. They need one. J.C. Horn, great defensive back. Derek Brown, great defensive tackle. But they don't, outside of that, it's about all they got. They need a true edge rusher. They traded away Brian Burns. They need someone who can be a force off the edge, and I think that's Michael Williams. He is a guy that I do think needs to work on his craft a little bit. I talked about that in my first video. But I think Evero could very well get him going. I feel like I'm always saying that wrong. But Michael Williams, number 13 overall to the Carolina Panthers. And that leaves us with Tyler Warren to the Indianapolis Colts. A running game with Anthony Richardson, Tyler Warren, and Jonathan Taylor is going to be elite. A do-it-all guy, a great blocker, a great route runner, can move him in the backfield. He can play fullback. He can do it all. He can play wherever for you. And I feel like that's just what the Indianapolis Colts are missing on their offense. They have a solid group of receivers. Michael Pittman, solid receiver. Alec Pierce is, coming to his own a little bit. A.D. Mitchell had a lot of flashes in his rookie year, didn't really live up to that second-round pick hype. But this is what they're missing. No more Mo Alley Coxes in Indianapolis. Tyler Warren is here, a guy you can move in the backfield, a guy you can have blocking an edge rusher coming off the edge, and he can run some beautiful, crisp routes for you. He's not the fastest guy in the world. That's okay. He's a grinder. Pick number 15, the Atlanta Falcons. I have them selecting linebacker Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. Elite athlete, sideline to sideline speed. A lot of the scouts are very mixed on how they view him. Some view him as an off-ball linebacker. Others say the opposite. They say that he needs to be coming full-time off the edge like a Micah Parsons. I go back and forth. I want to see how Raheem Morris will use him, but he does have the perfect scheme fit, the 3-4 scheme fit. That gives you a little bit of play there with Jihad Campbell. Let him develop into either the off-ball linebacker role or full-time coming off the edge. Regardless, I think he's going to be pretty good at doing both. I don't know if he's going to be an elite edge rusher like Micah Parsons is, but I do believe in Raheem Morris being able to get him there for sure. I think this just works out perfectly. I think this is a Raheem Morris guy 100%. Pick 15, lock it in, Jihad Campbell. And the last pick of the first video of my mock draft 2.0, that's going to be the Arizona Cardinals selecting Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. My mock draft 1.0, I had them going offensive line. Calvin Beachum and Evan Brown both re-signed. I think that's going to help them lean their decision towards the defensive side of the ball, especially with a head coach like Jonathan Gannon. They don't have a necessarily weak secondary, but in terms of their defense, it is probably their weakest unit. And I fully believe that Will Johnson is a top 10 player in this draft. Like, wholeheartedly, I do believe that if he didn't have turf toe last year, I think he'd be going in the top 10. I think the Arizona Cardinals are getting a steal here at pick 16. Jonathan Gannon's going to love him, and that is going to wrap up the first part of my mock draft 1.0. We can run through this real quick here. We got Cam Ward to Tennessee, Abdul Carter to Cleveland, Sanders to New York, Travis Hunter to the New York Jets via trade, Mason Graham to Jacksonville, Jalen Walker to Las Vegas, Will Campbell in the trade back to New England, Miami getting Armand Membo in the trade up with Carolina, Mike Green to New Orleans, J&T to Chicago, Calvin Banks to San Francisco, Ted McMillan to Dallas, Michael Williams to Miami or to Carolina in a trade back, Tyler Warren to the Colts, Jihad Campbell to the Falcons, and Will Johnson to the Arizona Cardinals. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another video. I will see you guys tomorrow for my mock draft 2.0 part 2, pick 17 through 32. It's going to be a good one. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, like, subscribe, all that good shit, and I'll see you guys then. Peace.